Hey guys, Evan Ork here, back with another video, and today we're going to be doing a review on the GMK Baragon figure. Now, this figure is definitely one of those figures that I really wanted for pretty much all the time I've been collecting. I've always just wanted to get it and never really got to. And then this Christmas, I saw the opportunity to get it. I forgot exactly how much. I think it was around 50, 60. I think it was, actually, no, it was at 49. But I must have paid a little bit extra, so I'm guessing it was around 50. I don't really know. But the point is, because that's not important, but the point is that I have it. I'm here to review it. And let's just start out with the pros on this figure. So when it comes to the pros, honestly, you guys might be shocked by this. I actually think the paint job is the pro that I can give it the most. And the reason for that is, it's just, although it's like primarily 3 or 4 colors, I just like the way they're painted onto the figure. The brown is nothing special because it's the primary color. You can't really do much with that. But I must confess to the fact that I do like the way that they blended the yellowish spikes. I like how it kind of looked yellowish and not just white. And I also liked how they made the tip of his, complete spine like, or horn, his spine, his horn, like kind of started to yellow and then it got white as it went further up to the tip. But it also did the same thing with here, with the claws here, where it kind of like, started to shade a little bit from brown to yellow so it looked normal, didn't just slap on the paint. Same thing here, kind of shaded a little bit of brown on the edges, but made it look like it was a claw by putting yellow and white paint at the very tip. And then, of course, you have those really nice booming red eyes, Of course, there's a little paint scuff on, on the tip of that horn, but, what do you expect? Stuff like that always has a paint scuff. But despite that, you also have the paint job, too, at the teeth, too, which is pretty average, but overall, although I can understand why the brown primary color is nothing special, everything else I like the way it's been blended in and stuff like that. So let's move on to the next thing I like about this figure. So the next thing I like about this figure is articulation. Now, articulation on this figure is also way above average, just like the paint job. It's one of those things where it was almost very close to being the best thing about this figure, where I just went with the paint job. But the articulation on this figure, in my opinion, this is the perfect example of how a Bandai figure should have articulation joints. And let me give you an example. You have the legs. Obviously, the legs need to move. You have the tail, right? You got the 2 arms, right? And then you got the ears. And then you got, that move very stiffly, but you have the neck. But you have the ears, 2 ears, the neck, the 2 arms, the 2 legs, and the tail. And that's just perfect. I mean, there's nothing left to articulate. Bandai figures just don't understand that when they make products, they usually don't have enough articulation joints because they miss the opportunity to add more articulation joints in areas that need it. This has pretty much covered all the areas necessary to have articulation, and that's why I like it. It's not a frozen figure. It's not a figure that just has an arm joints and leg joints and nothing else, when the rest of it had so much articulation potential. It's not like that at all, and that's why I really like it. So let's move on to the next thing I like about this figure. Now, the next thing I like about this figure, which is slightly above average, I guess we all have 3 above averages, but this is slightly above average, is, of course, last but not least, the detail. The detail on this figure is slightly above average because, although there isn't much, I do have to respect the fact that there's certain body parts that have really good specific lines for detail. Like, I like the way they kind of made it a little bit more rough, like a rough skin kind of texture on the legs here. They did the same thing with the arms. They had all the wrinkles and all like that. That's good detail right there. And you also have detail with the scales on the bottom. This was really nicely done. And I know this doesn't count as detail, but the paint here, the paint job here, where it's like a nice shade of yellow mixed in with the brown, is really nice. But back to detail, you got these detailed lines, these detailed rough skin patches all over the body. And of course, you have the detail on the lines reaching up to this part of the body. You see those lines like leading up. You also see the lines on the head there, these little circles and spots all over it that kind of surround the top of the head. And yeah, just the detail on this figure is slightly above average, but it's only slightly above average thanks to specific areas where there's more detail than others. That's why it's slightly above average. So let's move on to the cons with this figure. So when it comes to the cons with this figure, I really only have 2 nitpicks, but I guess you could say they're fairly big cons. I mean, I don't really know. But when it comes to the bigger nitpick, which is almost just your average flaw, I guess you could say, is the fact that, again, this is me being picky, but I don't really know how to describe it. I just feel as though when I look at this figure, it just seems more bulky than it needs to be. I understand that Baragon and GMK was this big, bulky kaiju that was kind of short and crouching over, but I just feel like it's a little bit too wide, you know what I mean? It feels a little bit too bulky for a Bandai figure, especially when you're comparing it to other figures. It just seems a little bit bigger than it really has to be. They should have made this figure slightly skinnier, and yes, if it fits the word better, I guess you could say he's kind of fat, but what I mean by that is that he's quite wide by the way he was made. So he's a little too bulky for me to like. I think it's just too much of a handful to collect. Bandai figures should be kind of like slightly. I mean, it depends on the design you're trying to mimic when making a figure. But with this compared to how it looked like it in GMK, maybe I could be wrong with this, but I don't know. I just get the idea that this could be better in terms of it being too bulky. It just looks a little bit too bulky to me. Again, that's just my opinion. I know it being a little bit picky there. The smaller nitpick I have with this is that the tail, I mean not the tail, excuse me, the neck joint is, slightly, or not slightly, but in fact very stiff. And that really shouldn't be. I mean, this isn't the kind of thing where it shouldn't rotate 360. I don't see why it shouldn't because, it just goes to like a certain extent. Like right here where I'm moving it, that's as far as it can go from this side and then the other side and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know why this can't move just fully to the side or fully to the side. I don't know why it has to be stiff. It's not one of those articulated joints that really has to be stiff. So let's move on to the comparisons of this figure. Again, I know I really don't do comparisons much, but when I do, it is something that I enjoy to do because it allows the figure to be interpreted by the person watching this review by looking at the figure that they might already have and comparing it to it. So this is the Bandai Creation GMK King Ghidorah. And then this is in fact, the latest figure I reviewed, which I also got for Christmas, the Bandai 2005 GMK figure. Both of which were taller than the Baragon, but you get the idea. I just feel like it's, a little bit bulky still. Either way, guys, I would rate this figure overall a 9.2 out of 10. Again, you guys might consider how the fact that I'm being a little bit unfair with the rate because all what I said earlier was a big, bunch of nitpicks, but that's just how I feel about it. But I definitely recommend it because 9.2 is a pretty good rate, so I don't see any reason really why you shouldn't get it, despite the nitpicks that it may have and that I've explained to you guys. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoy this review. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys later. Bye-bye.